All right. Today we are going to get into solving percent problems. Anytime you see something that says what percent is this of that, or this is what percent of another, or this number is what percent of another number, or something like that, this will solve your issue. And the Zhu-Pao, which you'll find out about here in just a little bit, will solve ratios, proportions, conversions of units, the percent problems, and a lot of other places. It's not always the easiest method as far as mathematically. It's not always the fastest. It's just one of those things that just always works. And as you get into higher math, you'll find other ways to do it, but when you're first starting out or something, or you have a moment where you can't really remember, the Zhu-Pao will knock it out. Zhu-Pao. Here we go. I got this method back in the day when I used to teach martial arts, and I was working with younger people and getting them to remember the motions and different things. And what we told our little biddies, whenever they ducked, they'd go, shoop, and that way it would be kind of fun for them or whatever. And then after we would do that, we'd hold up a mitt for them to hit afterwards. Boom, boom, zoop, pow. And it's the same motion that we have here. Imagine, here comes the fist at you. Ah, zoop. And as they continue down, up, pow. And you defend yourself. Zoop, pow. The whole duck around, wham thing. Coming the other side. Whoa, zoop, boom. Same kind of thing. That motion, or this way, is the same motion that will solve these for you. The trick is just the setup. And most people blow it in the setup phase. I'm going to show you a way to kind of talk around that too. If you haven't seen the video on converting between decimals, fractions, percents, and back and forth and all that, it wouldn't be a bad thing to go and review that. I'm going to hit it at a gallop over here, but we covered this in more depth on that one, the language of what the mathematical symbols mean. Okay, here we go. I just wrote these out here more for me to remind me what I'm going to do, and I'm going to walk through those as I do it so you can see how I think it out and what I write as I think of the certain words. So first we're going to start here, 90% of 600. Let's say for whatever reason you have a 10% off deal or discount or coupon or employee discount or something, and you want to buy something at $600. Well, you have to pay 90% of that $600. You just get an automatic 10% off or whatever it is. Well, how much are you going to have to pay? This is kind of where that might come in, and these are all over the place, these kinds of issues. So 90%. As soon as you see that it's a percent of something, immediately do this. Immediately draw your lines here and put this here. We covered last time that this line per cent means per cent. This doesn't mean over, it means per or out of or some other things like here. In this case, it's per cent. So once you do this, you ask yourself, you read the question, does it tell me the percent or are they asking for it? In this case, 90% of 600. They are telling me 90%. So I automatically put that here, 90%. And looky there, I'm halfway done and I haven't even thought yet. I love doing math without having to think. It's just one of my things. Okay, so we got 90% of 600. So the trick is, where does this 600 go? Now there are two ways, at least, to remember this. And some work for some people, some work for others. But the main two that I work with students is this. One, you could think of this as is, with the arrow on top, is. What is 90%? Or this is 90%. And then of, with the down arrow on the of goes on the bottom. This is 90% of something. You just kind of talk around the clock, kind of a deal. The other way, that doesn't make sense to some people because they're not as verbal. Some people remember this, they're more concept people. Well, the part that you're dealing with goes on top. Part and the whole, the bottom line, the whole thing goes on bottom. Think the whole on the bottom, but spelled differently, but the whole on the bottom. So the whole of what you're dealing with goes on the bottom, the part of it goes on top. So either one of those, my guess is one of those is clicking with you kind of already, and just work with that and see. So we go back to our thing, 90% of 600 is something. 90% of 600, of 600 is what? Whenever there's a what or something you don't know, that just what X holds the spot. That'll come in handy here in just a second. So now is our setup. Now we are ready for the Zhu-Pao. The way that you remember how to Zhu-Pao is you look at the side where the X's are. So here's X is on this side. So you forget about this. For now, you just deal with this. So go to which side, left or right, that the X is on. And then you say, what is the opposite side of the X? Or the flip side of the X, not the opposite. May be confusing. Remember, you don't deal with this. You're just dealing with the ones where the X is. Look for the X. X marks the spot. So whatever fraction X is in, that's what you do. You look at that one. So X, what's the flip side of the X? 600. So the flip side of the X is 600. That's where you start. And then you go cross corner, zoop, pow. Remember that motion? Zoop, pow. Or the other way, zoop, pow. This is it. Now, there's other ways to do that. This is just fun to remember. It has a neat little zoop motion. And visually, at least at the beginning, the visual will help you. Notice how it crosses here. This reminds you to multiply as you follow the line. And yes, put your little arrow on the end or you'll go backwards. People do it all the time. To start here, you multiply by this number. Once you do that, you divide by this number, and that gets you home. X marks the spot, like the end of a treasure map. You walk your way around, boom, when you get there, you're home free. But again, the line does not mean over. It means, in this case, divided by, or per, because you're dealing with a percent. So there you go. So let's just try it out. 60 times 900. Well, that may seem like, oh, those are huge numbers. And they are. If you have a calculator, it's easy. But if you don't, you take this 0 off, and you take those zeros off. Just work with the main number. 6 times 9 is 54. That's easy. Well, what do you do with these 3 zeros you kind of put on a shelf? Well, once you deal with the other numbers, you take those zeros back off the shelf, and you put them back on. So you had 3 zeros here, so you just add the 3 zeros back on. It's easy. Zeros are easy. That's why the metric system is so easy, even though we don't use it hardly. So then that's our first step. This times this is that. Then we divide it, divided by 100. Now look at all those zeros again. That may look ugly, but there's a neat trick when they're like this. You can cancel them out. Womp, womp. That leaves 540 divided by 1. Well, what's 540 divided by 1? It's 540. See how easy that is? So you get back over here, 540. So, what is 90% of 600? 540 is 90% of 600. See how that works? Just talk around the clock. Start anyway. So that's the zoop, pow, and you knock it out. It's easy, no problem. We're going to do another one here real quick. 16 2/3. Now this one looks ugly. Oh no, it's a fraction percent? That's just weird. That's okay. Just follow the same steps and it will all work out just the same. So again, I see that it's a percent issue, 16 2/3% of something. Before I even get to the something, I can go ahead and do my lines. I have my percent here. Now I look, are they asking me the percent or did they give it to me? And in this case, it was given to me, 16 2/3%. Now don't freak out, just go ahead and write it here, 16 2/3. Yes, we have a fraction and a fraction, but that's okay because don't think, oh no, it's not a fraction. Well, it's this mixed number divided by this whole number. It's a percent, percent. And yes, I keep repeating that to drive it home. So I'm half done without even thinking. So then I have this of 120. Where does it go? Top or bottom? Keyword of. Or you could think of, out of 120. Out of 120. Out of. That line can mean out of. See how that all kind of fits together? Or you can think 120, well that's the whole thing. 120 and out of the 120, we're pulling some part. So again, whatever concept works. And we fill that in with an X, so now we know we're finished. Now we just pow it. Find the side of the X. It happens to be the same place. Again, so we're not dealing with that. So the flip side of the X is here. Cross corner, zoop, pow. Again over here. We multiply first, where they cross. That reminds us. We divide when we hit the 100, and we just move it on over. So over here we have 120 times this. Oh, that just looks terrible. And it does look terrible, but open it up, start working with it, and it'll get real easy. Watch this. So 120. Okay, so fine, we have 120 times this. Now it looks like it's going to be ugly. Well, let's change that to a fraction because to multiply fractions, you have to have fractions. So this would turn into that. So 120 times, remember how we do this? Times here, add there, 48, 50 thirds. Okay, it's not bad. Then we can notice that we can cancel here. 3 divided by 3 is 1. But how do I know how many times 3 will go into that? Well, again, cover up to 0, remember that? Well, 3 will go into 12 how many times? 4. And then what do we do with that 0? Well, then we bring the 0 back off the shelf, and now we're there. Not so bad, after all. But 40 times 50, oh, those are huge, but we have zeros again. So we put the zeros on the shelf. 4 times 5 is just 20. And then we have 2 zeros on the shelf, so we bring those 2 zeros back over. So we have 2,000. That is our first step. And then we have our second step, divided by 100. So we have 2,000 divided by 100. And again, just like last time with the zeros, if we have 0 there, we can cancel those out. And we're left with 20 divided by 1 is 20. So it's 20. That is easy. See there?